Alaric believed I was a senile old man, unaware of his pilfering. But one night, as he crept into my study, intent on snatching a few hundred from my desk, he was met with a sight that rendered him utterly speechless. It would forever be etched in his memory. Before we delve deeper, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and share your current time zone in the comments below. My hand trembled, counting the banknotes for the third time. 50, 100, 150. The figures blurred, yet the stark reality remained. 500 golds missing from my writing desk. I sat on the plush armchair, gazing at the mahogany desk that had been my grandfather's. For 75 years, I had found it in the same spot, a steadfast fixture in my morning routine. This morning, however, felt wrong. Perhaps I spent it somewhere. I whispered, but the words felt hollow. Where would I spend 500 golds? The local market? My weekly chai at the Gilded Spire? I frantically searched under the desk, through drawers, in every jacket pocket hanging in the wardrobe. Nothing. The knot in my stomach tightened with each fruitless search. The aroma of freshly baked bread wafted from the kitchen below. Alara was humming a joyful tune, a melody she often heard on the village radio. Normal sounds on what should have been a normal morning. Yet everything had shifted, like a painting askew on the wall. I descended the stairs slowly, my legs heavy with a newfound unease. Alara stood by the hearth, flour dusting her apron, her hair tied back in the same braid she'd worn since her school days. "Morning, Father," she greeted, a warm smile gracing her lips. "Your tea is ready. Alara, have you seen my money? I seem to have misplaced 500 golds." Her face immediately clouded with concern. "Money, Father? I haven't touched anything in your study. Are you sure you didn't spend it? Maybe you forgot." The question stung more than it should have. Was I truly becoming one of those old men whose memory faltered, who unjustly accused loved ones of theft due to a failing mind? "What's all this hushed talk about?" Alaric appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes from yesterday, his dark eyes flitting between Alara and me. "Money troubles again, grandfather?" "Alaric, you haven't been in my study, have you?" I kept my voice steady, almost casual. His posture stiffened instantly. Arms crossed, shoulders squared. "What are you implying, Mr. Abernathy? That I'm some kind of thief?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm merely asking if you've seen. I work 12-hour days keeping this family afloat." His voice rose sharply. "I don't need to steal from anyone, especially not family." Alara stepped between us, her hands fluttering nervously. "Father, Alaric would never. There has to be an explanation." But I watched Alaric's face as he spoke. The way his eyes avoided mine, the defensive anger that flared too quickly, too practiced. A cold dread settled in my chest. "Of course," I said quietly. "I'm sure it will turn up." Alaric grabbed his lunch satchel from the counter, cast an unusually careful glance at his reflection in the hallway mirror, then headed for the door. "I'm late for the mill." The door slammed with unnecessary force. Alara gently touched my arm. "Father, you've been under so much strain since Mother passed. Sometimes our minds play tricks when we're grieving." I nodded, but my gaze followed Alaric's cart as it disappeared down Willow Lane. 3 years of living alone had taught me to account for every coin in that desk. I wasn't losing my mind. I was being robbed. That evening found us gathered in the parlor, like any other family. Alara sat on the divan, mending clothes, neatly folding Alaric's work tunics into piles. I pretended to read the local gazette, but my eyes kept drifting to Alaric, pacing near the window. He couldn't sit still. Every few minutes, he'd check his pocket watch, run a hand through his hair, or adjust the lace curtains. The nervous energy radiating from him was almost palpable. "My dear," he said suddenly, turning to Alara with a smile that seemed too bright. "I have a surprise for you. Close your eyes." Alara's face lit up with genuine delight. "Oh, Alaric, what have you done? Just close your eyes and hold out your hand." I lowered my gazette slightly, watching as Alaric produced a small velvet pouch from his jacket pocket. The kind of pouch that came from the finer merchants in the town square, not the humble stalls where we usually bartered. Alara gasped when she opened it. "Oh my goodness! It's exquisite! Where did you find the money for this?" The silver locket caught the flickering lamplight, delicate yet substantial. Pure silver, not the plated trinkets. I had worked enough years as a silversmith to recognize quality. "I took on extra shifts at the mill," Alaric declared, his chest puffing with pride. "Worked all weekend loading grain, double overtime pay." "You didn't tell me you were working weekends?" Alara's voice held wonder, not suspicion. "Wanted it to be a surprise. When you want to provide for your family, you find ways to make it happen." I folded my gazette carefully. "They pay rather well for weekend work these days." Alaric's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Time and a half on Saturday, double time on Sunday, plus hazard pay for handling the heavy sacks." "Which mill was this?" I kept my tone conversational, mildly interested. "The one by the old river bend, new contract with the Lord Regent." He was already helping Alara fasten the locket around her neck. Dangerous work, but worth it to see my wife smile. Alara threw her arms around him, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me." I watched them embrace, calculating quickly in my head. At least 400 golds for a locket like that, perhaps more. Funny how the numbers aligned. 500 golds missing, 400 spent on jewelry. The math was beginning to make uncomfortable sense. "You're spoiling her?" I said, forcing a smile. "She deserves to be spoiled," Alaric replied, but his eyes met mine with something that might have been a challenge. "A man should take care of his family, whatever it takes." A small parchment receipt crinkled in his back pocket as he sat down. I caught a glimpse of the merchant's crest, the Silver Serpent Town Square. Expensive taste for a mill worker taking on weekend shifts. "Well," I said, standing and stretching, "think I'll turn in early tonight. Long day tomorrow." "Father, are you feeling all right?" Alara looked up from admiring her reflection in the locket. "Just tired, sweetheart. Good night." But I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, my desk ledger in my hands, listening to their happy conversation drifting up from downstairs. Alara's laughter mingled with Alaric's deeper voice, painting a picture of domestic bliss. The connection was becoming impossible to ignore. Missing money, an expensive gift, lies about weekend work that I could easily verify with one inquiry at the mill district. I'd been a silversmith for 43 years. I knew how to solve problems by following the evidence, even when the solution was one I didn't want to find. 3 weeks later, I sat on my bed at dawn, the desk ledger open in my hands, staring at the undeniable truth. Exactly 250 golds missing. This time, there was no confusion, no self-doubt about my failing memory. I'd been checking my ledger every morning since the first theft, making mental notes of every coin spent. Yesterday evening I'd had 400 golds. Now I had 150. The theft had occurred sometime after midnight, when Alara and I were asleep. Alaric had been the last one home from his supposed evening shift, arriving around 11th bell with the faint scent of ale on his breath. I set the ledger on my nightstand and walked to the window. Alaric's cart was already gone. He left for the mill at 7th bell sharp every morning. But this morning, I'd heard him in the washroom at 6th bell, actually humming, while he prepared for work. The pattern was becoming clear. Steal money, act normal, perhaps even cheerful. Wait a few days, then spend it on something that would make Alara happy and grateful, keeping her loyalty divided between her husband and her father. But I wasn't going to be a victim any longer. I picked up my scrying orb and whispered to the ethereal voice within. "Oracle of Ethelgard, downtown district, please." The oracle's voice was helpful. "Oracle of Ethelgard, how may I assist you?" "Good morning. Do you possess small, discreet viewing crystals?" "Yes, sir. We have several models." "What is your application?" "Home security. I need something unobtrusive. We have wireless units with night vision. Motion activation. Connects to your personal scrying orb. Very popular with our patrons lately." "I'll be in this morning to examine your selection." Downstairs, Alara was preparing for her shift at the village market. She looked up as I descended the stairs, already dressed in my finest tunic. "Father, where are you off to so early?" "Into town, honey. Need to pick up something from the oracle's shop." "Do you want Alaric to drive you?" He mentioned going that way for work. The irony wasn't lost on me. "No, thank you. I prefer to drive myself." Alara kissed my cheek. "Be careful on those downtown thoroughfares. They're doing repairs on the cobblestones." I patted her shoulder, hating that I couldn't tell her what was truly happening. Not yet. Not until I had proof she couldn't deny or explain away. In my cart, I checked the rearview mirror before backing out of the driveway. My reflection looked different than it had in months. Determined. The confused, grieving widower was gone. The silversmith was back, ready to solve a problem with methodical precision. The missing money wasn't random. The amounts, the timing, the defensive reactions, everything pointed to a calculated plan. Someone thought they were stealing from a forgetful old man who wouldn't notice or wouldn't fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I drove toward downtown Ethelgard with steady hands, my mind already working through the technical specifications I'd need. Night vision capability, motion activation, scrying orb connectivity, perhaps even sound recording, if the village laws permitted. Evidence first, confrontation second, justice third. The game had changed, but Alaric didn't know it yet. The Oracle's Emporium sat on Cobblestone Way like a beacon of possibility. I parked carefully between two merchant carts, my artisan instincts already cataloging the shop's viewing crystals mounted above the entrance. If I was going to catch a thief, I needed to think like one. The chime of the magical barrier announced my arrival. Rows of enchanted devices stretched before me. Scrying orbs, communication crystals, security equipment. A young apprentice with vibrant blue hair and multiple facial piercings approached, likely wondering what an old man wanted with all this technology. "Help you find something specific, sir?" "Home security crystals. Something discreet but reliable." His face brightened with professional interest. "Residential or commercial application?" "Personal. I need clear image quality, especially in low-light conditions." He led me to a display wall filled with various crystal models. Boxes promised features I'd only seen in ancient texts. Night vision, motion detection, scrying orb connectivity. Technology had advanced significantly since my silversmithing days. "This model here," he pointed to a compact obsidian device, "records up to 12 hours on a full charge." I examined the specifications parchment. "What about image quality in darkness?" "Crystal clear facial recognition from 10 feet. Infrared sensors automatically activate when ambient light drops below threshold levels. Motion activation sensitivity is adjustable through the scrying app. It won't trigger from shadows or small movements, but it catches all significant motion. Very popular with our patrons lately. The night's eye minuscule fit in my palm. Smaller than I'd expected, but the specifications were impressive. 1080p resolution, 140-degree viewing angle, wireless connectivity. Everything an artisan could want for gathering evidence. I'll take it. During the drive home, the small box sat on my passenger seat like a weight. 40 years of silversmithing experience, and I was using it to catch a thief in my own home. The irony wasn't lost on me. Alara's cart was gone from the driveway. Her shift at the market ran until 6th bell. Alaric's cart was also missing, which meant I had the house to myself for installation. Perfect timing. Inside, I spread the crystal components across my kitchen table like pieces of an intricate puzzle. The instruction manual was surprisingly straightforward. Mount, connect to ley line, download app, calibrate settings. Basic technology that even someone my age could master. In my study, I examined the layout with an artisan's eye. The writing desk sat directly across from my bookshelf, which held several framed family portraits. Behind the largest frame, an 8x10 image of Alara's wedding would provide the perfect hiding spot. Positioning the crystal required precision. Too high and it would miss the desk. Too low and furniture would block the view. I adjusted the angle 3 times before achieving optimal coverage of both the ledger's location and the quill holder I always kept beside my inkwell. The scrying orb app connected immediately. Secure View displayed a clear black and white image of my study, complete with timestamp and battery indicator. I tested the night vision by closing the heavy drapes. The infrared sensors activated automatically, revealing every detail in ghostly clarity. Motion sensitivity required careful calibration. Too sensitive would trigger false alarms from shadows or settling house sounds. Too conservative might miss subtle movements. I set it to medium sensitivity and tested by walking past the writing desk. The crystal captured my movement perfectly, sending an instant alert to my scrying orb. Now for the bait. I counted exactly 150 golds from my remaining cash, arranging the coins so they were clearly visible when the ledger lay open. Not enough to seem careless, but sufficient to tempt someone who thought they'd gotten away with previous thefts. The quill holder went in its usual spot, a habit from my late wife's time, when she insisted I always keep my writing tools at hand. Now it would serve as additional evidence if my suspicions proved correct. Everything was ready. Crystal hidden, bait positioned, app configured. I turned off the study light and paused in the doorway, knowing that tomorrow morning would change everything. In the darkness, the crystal's tiny red recording light blinked once, then disappeared into surveillance mode. Seventh bell arrived with the precision of a craftsman's hammer. My eyes opened immediately, trained by decades of early rising for the forge, but today felt different. Today I wasn't checking my ledger with confusion or doubt. Today I was collecting evidence. The ledger lay exactly where I'd positioned it, but the coins were gone. All 150 golds vanished without a trace. No surprise this time, just grim satisfaction that my trap had worked exactly as planned. I reached for my scrying orb with hands that trembled slightly, not from age or uncertainty, but from anticipation. The Secure View app showed one motion-triggered recording timestamped at 2:47 a.m. household sleeping time. Perfect conditions for theft. My finger hovered over the play button. Once I watched this video, there would be no more doubts, no more benefit of the doubt, just cold, documented truth. The infrared footage began with an empty study. Then the door opened slowly, carefully. A figure moved with practiced stealth toward my writing desk. The crystal's facial recognition was clear. Alaric's features showed in perfect detail as he approached my sleeping area. He moved like someone who'd done this before. No hesitation, no fumbling around. Straight to the ledger, fingers deftly removing the coins. A quick count to verify the amount. Professional efficiency that spoke of experience. But then something happened that made my blood run cold. After pocketing my money, Alaric picked up my quill holder, the one I used every morning, and deliberately spat into it. Not accidentally, not carelessly. A calculated act of disrespect and contempt. How long has this been going on? I whispered to my scrying orb screen. How many times have I used his? I replayed the most offensive moments twice more. The theft itself was methodical, practiced. But that spit, that was personal. That was a man who not only stole from his benefactor but actively despised him. My fingers shook as I saved the video to both my orb's memory and the cloud of the Ethelgard archives. Evidence this clear was too valuable to risk losing to technical failure. The house remained quiet downstairs. Alara getting ready for work, probably humming again while she prepared tea. Alaric pretending to sleep off his night shift, playing the tired husband who worked so hard to provide for his family. I needed advice, someone objective who could help me process what I'd discovered. Master Theron answered on the second ring. We'd worked together in the Silversmith Guild for 20 years before retirement, shared enough tea breaks and intricate designs to build trust. Theron, sorry to call so early. I need advice about something serious. What's wrong, old friend? You sound distraught. I just caught my son-in-law stealing from me on camera. Silence stretched across the ley line. Finally, are you absolutely certain? Video evidence, clear as daylight, shows his face, shows him taking my money, shows him... I paused, still processing the spit. Shows him doing things that prove this wasn't his first time. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Alara doesn't suspect anything. This will destroy her world. Evidence is evidence. Lester. You can't ignore theft just to preserve feelings. I know, but she loves him. Has no idea what kind of man she married. Perhaps it's time she learned. After hanging up, I sat on my bed's edge, staring at the frozen video frame showing Alaric's face clearly illuminated by infrared light. The crystal had captured everything perfectly. Timing, actions, identity, irrefutable proof of systematic theft. Now I had evidence, but what exactly was I going to do with it? Through the thin walls, I could hear Alara moving around the master bedroom, getting dressed for another day of innocent ignorance. Soon, she'd kiss my forehead goodbye and head off to work, completely unaware that her husband was a thief, and worse. The parlor felt different this morning. Same furniture, same photographs, same morning light filtering through the linen curtains my wife had hung 15 years ago, but the atmosphere had changed completely. I settled into my recliner with coffee that tasted bitter despite the cream. On the side table, a leather-bound album of etched memories caught my attention. Pictures from the winter solstice when Alara and Alaric first moved in. Everyone smiling, everyone hopeful. The contrast with this morning's reality hit like a physical blow. Opening the album brought back memories I'd tried to preserve. Solstice Eve, their arrival day. Bundles stacked in the driveway. Alara crying with relief. Alaric shaking my hand with genuine gratitude. "Father, we're so grateful," Alara had said, hugging me tight enough to crack ribs. "Without you, I honestly don't know what we'd have done." Alaric had stood behind her, humble and appreciative. "Lester, I promise we'll get back on our feet quickly. Just need a few months to find steady work. I'll help with repairs around the house," he'd added. "Earn our keep while we're here. Take your time," I told them both. Family helps family. That's what your mother would have wanted. Those first weeks had been wonderful. Alaric actually did help. Fixed the leaky kitchen tap I'd been ignoring. Cleaned gutters before the heavy winter snows. Even helped me organize tools in the workshop. We'd shared evening Alesh and talked about his plans to find better employment. Alara glowed with happiness, having family close again, seeing her father and husband getting along, building what she hoped would be a permanent arrangement. She'd started planning festive decorations for next solstice, talking about traditions we could establish. But when had gratitude transformed into entitlement? When had Alaric's respectful Mr. Abernathy become the dismissive Lester, accompanied by eye rolls? When had helpful suggestions become bitter criticisms about my age, my habits, my supposed interference in their marriage? The change had been gradual enough that I'd explained it away. Financial stress making him irritable, job hunting frustration affecting his mood, a normal adjustment period for 3 adults sharing space. I'd made excuses for increasingly disrespectful behavior. His complaints about my scrying orb being too loud, his suggestions that I eat dinner in the kitchen while they used the dining hall, his pointed comments about old people who couldn't manage their own money. Looking back now, those comments about money management felt particularly insulting. He'd been stealing from me while criticizing my supposed financial incompetence. The album showed solstice morning. Alaric opening the expensive toolkit I'd bought him. Alara delighted with her new winter cloak. All of us gathered around the hearth like a real family. 3 weeks later, he'd committed his first theft. How long had he been planning it? Had he scoped out my study during those helpful visits? Noted my habits, my routines, the location of my ledger? "Love you, Father." Alara's voice startled me from my memories. She stood in the doorway, dressed for work, her satchel slung over her shoulder. She bent to kiss my forehead, the same gesture every morning since moving in. "Love you, too, sweetheart. You seem quiet today. Everything okay?" The weight of the video evidence felt heavy in my pocket. How could I tell her that her husband was a thief, that the man she trusted completely had been systematically robbing her father while she slept beside him? "Just thinking about things. Go on. Don't be late for work." She headed toward the door, then paused. "Father, I know having us here has been an adjustment, but I'm really grateful. Alaric is too, even if he doesn't always show it well." The irony was almost unbearable. After her cart disappeared down Willow Lane, I closed the album of etched memories and returned it to the side table. Those solstice memories felt like artifacts from someone else's life. A more naive version of myself who'd believed in the goodness of family, who'd trusted without verification. The crystal evidence demanded action. But what kind? Confrontation would shatter Ilara's world. Calling the village guard would destroy the family permanently. Staying silent meant accepting continued theft and disrespect. I had proof now. The question was, what kind of justice did I want? The herbal infusion steamed in my late wife's favorite china cup. But even Martha's old remedy for stress couldn't calm the storm brewing inside me. I sat at the kitchen table with my 11/25 calendar parchment spread open, red quill in hand, marking dates like a sage building a case. First of frost, the first real conflict. I drew a sharp X over the date, remembering how Alaric had tracked mud through the house despite my simple request about removing boots at the door. "You old people always find something to complain about," he'd said, his voice dripping with contempt. Ilara had jumped in immediately. "Father's just particular about his floors. It's his house." But I'd seen the look in Alaric's eyes. Not embarrassment or apology, but resentment. Like I was some burden he had to tolerate rather than the man providing him shelter. 15th of frost. Another X. "Maybe if you didn't interfere so much with our decisions, our finances would be better." That's what he'd said when I'd suggested Ilara might benefit from overtime hours at the market. Not a discussion, an accusation. As if my gentle advice was somehow sabotaging their future, I flipped to Hearth Month, quill hovering over multiple potential dates. The disrespect had accelerated that month, becoming a weekly occurrence instead of isolated incidents. 4th of Hearth, Heart's Day, the day he'd given Ilara that expensive silver locket, the day after he'd stolen my first 500 golds. My hand trembled slightly as I marked that date with a particularly bold X. He'd been planning it even then, sizing up my routines while criticizing my outdated lifestyle. Every complaint about house rules had been reconnaissance for theft. 10th of Hearth. "This house feels like a prison with all these ridiculous rules." That comment had stung because Ilara nodded along, caught between loyalty to her husband and respect for her father. I'd watched her struggle with divided allegiances while Alaric systematically undermined my authority in my own home. Bloom month dates multiplied under red ink. Each X represented another verbal assault disguised as family tension. Old folks can't handle change. Maybe it's time to consider assisted living. Some people shouldn't manage their own money. The last comment made me sick now. While questioning my mental capacity, he'd been stealing, proving his own criminal behavior. I closed the calendar parchment and checked the kitchen clock. 7th bell in the evening. Ilara would be working late inventory at the market. Alaric was supposedly picking up overtime at the mill, though I knew better now what his evening activities actually involved. Tomorrow, I'd drive downtown for special supplies. Tonight, I'd plan. The video evidence had shown me Alaric's criminal nature. These marked calendar dates revealed his manipulative character. Both pieces of information would prove useful very soon. I rinsed Martha's teacup carefully, treating it with the respect Alaric had never shown this house or its owner. Tomorrow would begin the final phase of a lesson 3 months in the making. Some people needed to learn that disrespecting your benefactor came with consequences. Prankster's Parlor blazed in enchanted neon letters above a storefront that looked like a carnival had exploded. I checked the address twice before parking, feeling oddly out of place among the colorful displays of whoopee cushions and fake spiders. But this wasn't about humor. This was about justice. Inside, shelves stretched floor to ceiling with every conceivable practical joke. Buzzing handshakes, squirting flowers, rubber serpents. A young apprentice with vibrant purple hair and multiple piercings approached, clearly curious about the serious-faced grandfather browsing shock devices. "Looking for anything specific, sir?" "Something that delivers consequences for unwanted behavior. Harmless, but memorable." She led me to a display case filled with various electrical novelties. "These shock items are pretty popular. What kind of application did you have in mind?" I examined a shocking coin purse, testing its weight and texture. Real leather exterior, indistinguishable from an ordinary billfold. How strong is the electrical charge? Completely safe, just 9 volts. Enough to surprise someone without causing any harm. Battery lasts about 6 months with normal use. Define normal use. Most customers deploy it once or twice before the novelty wears off. But this model is built for repeat applications if needed. Perfect. I tested it on my own palm. A sharp zap that would definitely get someone's attention without causing injury. After 43 years of silversmithing, I appreciated good technical design, even in novelty items. I'll take it, and I need realistic counterfeit currency. Illusionist quality. Her eyebrows raised slightly, but she led me to another section filled with prop currency. These coins look identical to real money in normal lighting. Only detailed inspection reveals the illusionist use-only watermark. I examined the fake golds and silvers. Impressed by the metal quality and intricate etchings, they felt authentic. Weight distributed correctly. Even had the proper texture of worn currency. How much for 150 golds worth? 37 silvers and 50 coppers for the prop money, plus 9 silvers and 90 coppers for the shock coin purse. Call it 50 even. I handed over the real cash, thinking about poetic justice. 150 fake golds to replace the 150 real golds Alaric had stolen. He wanted to take my money. Tomorrow night, he'd get exactly what he deserved. The apprentice packaged everything carefully to prevent accidental activation. Hope this works out for whatever you're planning. Oh, it will work perfectly. Back in my cart, I secured the purchases in my trunk and reviewed the installation plan during the drive home. After Alara fell asleep, but before Alaric's usual theft window, probably around midnight, I'd replace my real ledger with the shocking version, loaded with counterfeit currency, positioned to look authentic in darkness. At the red light on Willow Lane, I checked my rearview mirror. Just an ordinary grandfather running afternoon errands. Nobody would suspect that tonight I'd prepare something my son-in-law would never forget. The trap was chosen. Now came the setting. Alara ladled beef stew into our bowls with the careful attention she always gave family dinners, trying to create warmth in a house that had grown steadily colder over recent weeks. The kitchen smelled of bay leaves and simmering vegetables, but underneath the domestic comfort lurked something poisonous. This looks wonderful, sweetheart. I kept my voice deliberately pleasant while studying Alaric across the table. He'd been unusually quiet since arriving home, picking at his food instead of devouring it with his typical enthusiasm. Father, you've been working on something in the workshop all afternoon. New project. Just organizing tools. Amazing what you find when you really examine things closely. Alaric's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Something in my tone had caught his attention, though he couldn't identify the threat yet. Speaking of examining things, I continued, buttering my bread with deliberate slowness. I've been thinking about home security lately. Fascinating how technology lets you monitor everything that happens, even when you're sleeping. Security. Alara looked up from her stew. Are you worried about break-ins? Not break-ins exactly. More like internal security issues. Someone in this village thinks other people's money is community property. Alaric set down his fork entirely. There you go again with your paranoia, Lester. Maybe you forget where you spend money and blame other people. Paranoia? I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. That's an interesting theory, Alaric. Tell me, how much did that mill overtime pay you last weekend? His jaw tightened. Why does that matter? Just curious about wage rates these days. Seems like some people earn money very easily for very little actual work. Alara sensed the underlying hostility and jumped in quickly. Can't we just have one peaceful family meal? You two have been tense with each other all week. Your father's been making accusations he can't prove, Alaric snapped, his facade of respectful son-in-law finally cracking. I'm tired of listening to complaints from a cheap old man who counts every penny like it's his last. The silence that followed was deafening. Alara's spoon clattered against her bowl. Cheap old man? I repeated softly, leaning back in my chair. That's a fascinating choice of words from someone living rent-free in my house. Lester, Alaric started, but I held up my hand. No, please continue. I'm very interested in your perspective on my character, particularly your thoughts about my money management habits. Alara looked between us with growing alarm. What is this really about? You're both acting like you know something I don't. I studied Alaric's flushed face, seeing fear beneath the anger. He knew he'd gone too far, revealed too much of his true feelings. But he didn't know how much I actually knew. Your husband and I just have different philosophies about respect, I said finally. Isn't that right, Alaric? He pushed back from the table abruptly. I don't have to sit here and listen to this nonsense. No, I agreed calmly. You don't. This is my house, after all. After he stormed upstairs, Alara began clearing dishes with shaky hands. Father, what's really going on? You've both been acting strange. Sometimes people show their true character when they think nobody's watching. She paused, dish towel in hand. What does that mean? You'll understand soon enough, sweetheart. I excused myself and headed upstairs, leaving Alara to puzzle over the evening's tensions. In my study, I retrieved the shock coin purse and counterfeit money from their hiding place behind my bookshelf. In a few hours, when the house settled into sleep, I'd set the final trap. Tomorrow morning would bring the confrontation months in the making. Tonight, justice prepared to spring. The red digits on my bedside clock glowed. 1:57 a.m. when I heard the first soft footstep in the hallway. I controlled my breathing, keeping it slow and deep like someone lost in peaceful sleep, while my heart hammered against my ribs with anticipation. 3 months of theft and humiliation were about to meet their consequences. The shock coin purse sat innocuously on my writing desk, loaded with movie prop golds that looked genuine in dim light. Every detail had been planned with an artisan's precision. Bait positioned exactly where Alaric expected it. Battery charged to optimal voltage. Fake money aged to feel authentic. Another footstep closer now. My study door opened with the barest whisper of hinges. Alaric had practiced this routine enough to avoid every creaking floorboard, every loose carpet edge. He moved like a professional burglar in his own family's home. I kept my eyes closed, but tracked his approach through subtle changes in air movement and the soft sounds of careful placement. 3 steps toward the bookshelf, paused to verify my apparent unconsciousness. 2 more steps to the writing desk. The moment of truth arrived with electrical precision. Ah! What the? Alaric's agonized shout shattered the night silence as 9 volts of justice shot through his nervous system. The fake money scattered across the floor as he stumbled backward, clutching his shocked hand against his chest. I opened my eyes and reached for the bedside lamp, flooding the room with warm yellow light. Oh my! What woke me up? I asked with perfectly feigned confusion. Alaric, what are you doing in my study at 2 in the morning? He stood frozen beside my desk, movie prop coins scattered around his feet like evidence in a courtroom. His right hand still trembled from the electrical shock, fingers opening and closing reflexively. I was just getting some water from the kitchen, he stammered, but his eyes couldn't meet mine. Water? I sat up slowly, making a show of adjusting my sleep clothes. And how did those fake coins end up all over my floor? Fake coins? I don't understand what you're talking about. The same way you didn't understand the previous times you stole from me. I reached for my scrying orb on the nightstand, thumb hovering over the saved video file. The same way you didn't understand when you spat in my quill holder. His face went completely white. You're crazy. I never took anything from you. Really? I held up the orb, screen angled so he could see the paused video footage. Should we review the security footage together? I have excellent recordings of your late-night activities. The trapped animal look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. 3 months of careful planning had worked exactly as designed, but our private confrontation was about to become a family crisis. What's all that noise? Is everything okay up there? Alara's voice called from the hallway, sleepy and concerned. Both men froze, knowing the moment of full revelation had finally arrived. Alara appeared in the doorway, wearing her blue terrycloth robe, hair disheveled from sleep, trying to make sense of why two grown men were wide awake and shouting at 2 in the morning. Her eyes took in the scene. Scattered fake coins, her husband's guilty expression, her father holding his scrying orb like evidence. What's happening here? Why is everyone awake? She stepped into the room, slippers shuffling across the carpet. Alaric, why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Your husband has been stealing my money for months, I said quietly, watching her face carefully. I finally caught him in the act. Father, that's impossible. Alara's voice held automatic defense, the loyalty.